Hey everybody, and happy Sunday. Welcome to Call the AD and welcome to Scottish Watches. I'm Arthur.
I'm Stephanie.
And this is our weekly show where we go kind of a deep dive discussion on just different fun topics. This week we're going to be talking about the connection between watches and F1 and the watches and watch brands involved.
Yeah, we're both big Formula One fans. And obviously watches are a big part of the sponsorship and advertising. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of combine two of the things that usually take up a lot of our Sundays and talk about it together and have some friends join us.
Exactly. Yeah. So real quick before we introduce them, we're going to be joined today by Josh and Vivi Shanks of Watchonista fame. And if you don't know them, we'll have them on to introduce themselves in just a moment. Just a quick reminder, if you like our show, please like the video, hit subscribe to see what else is going on Scottish Watches, and the bell icon if you want to be notified whenever we go live in the future. So, and also we're on Instagram. We've got the show's own account called the A.D, where you can keep up to date on the latest stuff we're doing. So without further ado, let's bring on our friends.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Welcome.
How we doing?
Good.
Good. Thanks for being with us. And this was actually your suggestion to do a show about this, and I was like, "Yeah, come on over."
It's a perfect topic. It's great. So thanks for joining us.
I feel like we have our dedicated group chat on Instagram for all things racing, and we just kept going back and forth, and it just made too much sense not to do it, right?
Yeah. And Josh, I think you and I started talking, like this is how we first met, was around like the F1 race in Austin, where we both were there. It didn't end up working out to get together, but that's kind of how we started chatting, which was fun.
Yeah.
Kind of like that Spider-Man meme of like two Spider-Mans pointing at each other, like, you like racing? You like racing?
You like racing? Yay. Exactly.
Yeah. When multiple hobbies combine, it's just too good.
Josh, have you always been into racing? Vivi, what about you?
Well, my dad used to watch racing in the morning. I was like interested, but like I was interested in more other things. And of course, when I met Josh, he was like passionate about it and like telling me all the cool stuff, all about all the drivers and everything. And of course, I got more interested.
It's kind of one of our first dates, really. There was the IndyCar race was it IndyCar? I think it was IndyCar.
It was IndyCar, yeah.
And 2016, I want to say. And she was still living in Switzerland, and she was visiting the U.S. And our relationship was still like very much on the down low. And we were meeting with watch guys. There was John Ferrer of Blue Watches. Who else? Jim from Watch Flare. And we were all going to meet up at the. I think we got like a 4-for-1 special. It was like 4 tickets, 4 beers, and 4 hot dogs for $99.
Great.
And we were all going to meet at the Poconos, and it ended up raining, and the entire race was rained out, and it rained for like 3 days, and by that time she had to go back to Switzerland. So we went to the Speedway, rain delay for like 4 hours, then we all ended up going to a casino, and then we went bowling. But our relationship, like we were like, trying to hold hands and kiss behind everyone's backs, and we didn't want anyone to know because we had only been dating maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So after having a race rained out, like he ends up taking you bowling. Like Vivi, you still ended up with this guy. Like I don't know.
No, it was like, I guess like all the thrill of like hiding ourselves from our friends was kind of fun.
That's fun. Yeah. That's cute.
And he was like, oh, you're gonna love the race and everything. It was raining like crazy that Sunday. We get there and there's like barely any car and barely anything happening. However, they were still doing like the opening ceremonies, like, oh, we'd like to thank the first responders. Oh, we'd like to do this, or and we're like, maybe we were like 10 on the entire race.
We're like, I don't think they're gonna do this. And then they called the race. But I grew up in Indiana, right? So I mean, there's obviously a rich racing, culture here. My dad had a few friends that ran sprint cars, and he always toyed with the idea of like, can I be a sprint car mechanic or a crew chief? And he had a few friends ask him, but I really grew up around mechanics. My dad's an engineer, and we'd always work on cars together. So that culture was like in my veins. And of course, I've been to multiple Indy 500s. I think last year we went to our 20th Indy 500. It was like
wow.
For my dad and I, we went to the Indy 500 every single year. And of course, being a Watchonista has been really cool that, that's kind of become, it used to be that, finance was my day job and watches were my passion. And now it's like watches are my day job and racing is my passion. And so, we've been able to do a few racing things, like a collaboration with like Tag Heuer at the Indy 500. And we've been able to do those for work, which has been really cool.
That's amazing. That's really fun.
Put on that cap and go there and like, I'm getting paid to do this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But it is weird though too, because you've still got, it's like definitely like tradition for my dad and I finally gotten him into Formula One, and I think the Netflix Drive to Survive show is huge, and getting him into that because he can kind of see the fitness of the drivers, and he can see what goes on behind the scenes and all the politics. I think that's kind of really opened his eyes to the sport, because before, especially in America, I don't know how you guys feel, like Formula One was always just very much a foreign sport. It's kind of like watching football, and you're like, what are those? I don't understand anything that's happening. But now I think, with the internet and social media, people are finally getting exposed to it. So
yeah,
I think so. I think Drive to Survive is huge. Like, frankly, that's what got me into it. Totally.
And it's sort of like that gateway to relate to the individual drivers, get to know them and the stories, but also like how everything works, right? So it was a perfect intro for a lot of people, right?
I think so. And it did really good timing, like right before the 2019 season started. So you could be like caught up. It was like a recap of last year to get to know the personalities and the players. And so now Arthur and I are both like fully into it. We watch quali every Saturday, all the races every Sunday, even if it's the middle of the night. It's great. It's fun.
Maybe shaking your head, but that's exactly how it is in our house too.
Yeah, we also watch practice on Friday.
Nice. We'll have it in the background. It's
right. Right. It's like something like 3 hours of total running or something like that, so it's a good background thing, right? Practice.
It's fun. Like, it's a shared hobby, and the fact that like all four of us are into it is great, because we each have like strong opinions about particular drivers or things that happen, or sharing silly F1 memes with each other. It's great. It's fun.
The memes are really good on the F1 world.
And I made a burner account for Twitter because I didn't want to use my name or anything like that, and I've been like definitely like really heavy up on the "We Say No to Mazepin."
He's no good.
And I ended up sharing it too much, and I got banned from Twitter for like 10 days.
Oh no!
That's
I got to Twitter jail because I was like going against this guy that was joining Haas. So that's fun.
At least you started a burner account first, so
exactly.
You could go all out. So I guess before we get too far, let's do the wristwatch check, mandatory. And how about, Stephanie, you came up with this question. It's a hard one, but favorite current F1 driver to go along with it?
Ooh, hard.
Do you want to start?
I'll start. So I'm wearing my Explorer 1 today. Sorry, it's hard to see with the lights, but the 36 millimeter, which I love. It's my go-to. And my favorite Formula One driver right now is George Russell. I think he's adorable. I think he's the future of the sport. It was really great to see him like get his run with Mercedes, even though that race was like very tragic for him. But I think you could see like all of the talent that he has. Anyway, he's my favorite.
That's a good answer.
That's great.
I'm wearing my IWC Top Gun, which fits really nicely into their Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team sponsorship. And I think this is a hard question. I didn't really prepare for this, but I think my favorite driver is probably Daniel Ricciardo. And I'm particularly happy he's going to McLaren because they're one of my favorite teams. So it'll be a good combination.
Him and Lando Norris are just going to be like a comic duo. So
comedic gold for sure.
Man's going to be so good.
But even Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris were great together. But I mean, they're both just total goobers, and I think it's going to be really good to get together.
Should be entertaining. All right, what watches are you guys wearing, and favorite F1 driver?
I am wearing my Breitling Rainbow, Super Ocean Rainbow.
Nice.
And it's kind of a hard question, Stephanie. I want to say Hülkenberg because, like, I know he's not currently like on the grid and everything, but he's always there when we didn't need him. Like,
gotta call him a Hulk. Yeah.
The Hülkenberg memes were great. Like, I saw something. What was the government? Was it the Dutch government that collapsed the other day? One of these governments collapsed, and all the memes like Hülkenberg is now the president. I'm wearing Speedmaster, just standard Moonwatch. I got it right before they came out with the coaxial. But I still have to go my favorite F1 driver, and he's back on the grid next year, is Fernando Alonso.
Oh, yes.
Ricardo getting a couple podiums last year gave me hope that Fernando might be able to return to the podium since leaving Ferrari. I mean, he hasn't been on the podium in over 10 years, and I'm not expecting him to win races, but at least it would be cool to see a 40-year-old Fernando Alonso on the podium. I think that'd be a nice fitting, continuation of his career.
Right.
I think it was pretty funny. Like his first day back at Renault, they did some pictures of him with his like backpack, like it was his first day at school, like comparing his first day at Renault a million years ago, and then today.
That was particularly funny because they snuck him into the like young driver practice sessions at the end of last year.
Bullshit, but it was funny. Yeah.
But during quarantine, we watched a lot of F1 TV. So I had subscribed to it because we were in Switzerland visiting her family, and I'd subscribed to it because they only got the F1 races in like German. And I can't watch this, so I got F1 TV, and then they have this whole archive there, and I was like, I went year by year, starting with 2005, like the first year of Fernando's championship, and my subscription expired in 2009. But it's great. I rewatched all these races that I had never really seen or experienced.
We were thinking about going through some old seasons because we didn't really like follow it much before a couple of years ago, and it would be like all brand new and news to us anyway. So it could be
it definitely filled the gap in not having F1 on. But unfortunately, F1 TV, this little plug, they still don't work on Apple TV. They need to fix that.
Yeah.
You can't have F1 TV on your TV, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right. We do. That's actually like the one reason we still have a Roku is because they do have an F1 TV app. Yeah. And Josh, it looks like you were right. Our resident Dutchman here says, yes, the Dutch government collapsed because they sucked. Nothing else to do with COVID.
But it doesn't change the fact that Hulkenberg is still available. Like,
for anything. He's your guy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess to get into it, I actually found an article, Josh, that you wrote. I think it was in 2018 that kind of did a good job summarizing, at least at that point, like the relationships between different watch brands and F1 teams and stuff. So I thought maybe we could have a look at that to get, especially those that may not be familiar with, like what these sponsorships look like. Go have a look at that and see what's changed and just sort of chat through it, if that sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'd also be curious as we're like looking through these. I know nothing about the sponsorship world, and that is your specialty. So I don't know how this works. Like, what is the scope? If this is something you can share, like the scale of numbers of zeros that are involved in something of a watch brand sponsoring an F1 team. And I'm sure it scales depending on levels of sponsorships, but kind of curious about how these things work anyway.
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned. I don't know. Watchonista sponsored a NASCAR team last year.
So fun.
Yeah,
that's great.
I remember.
It was a fascinating exercise, actually, in the sports marketing world, which I didn't know anything about really, other than writing this article and seeing a few other things. And luckily with Watchonista, there's an intrinsic link between timekeeping and racing, and we do find ourselves quite often in these situations where we can. I've interviewed Lewis Hamilton, I've interviewed Valtteri Bottas, I've interviewed Pierre Gasly. And we've been able to talk racing with these guys and kind of get in depth. But when we went racing, we did it in the Charlotte Roval race in NASCAR Xfinity, and we sponsored the SS Greenlight Racing Joe Graf Chevy Camaro. And we were basically, there's multiple layers of partnerships that you can get into, and we'll just use NASCAR as an example. I mean, there's an overall series sponsor, which of course, as you can tell by this picture, it's still Rolex. That's the running joke with Vivi and I. Like, you're watching the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix or Imola or whatever, and Rolex is everywhere. And she's like, "Oh, I think Rolex is a sponsor of this."
Is it Rolex this time? I'm not sure.
But I think with Formula One last year, they had three main sponsors. They had Rolex, Emirates, and I want to say Pirelli. I could be wrong, but I believe it was Pirelli as the third. And so those are kind of on a scheduleized basis. And so they kind of swap them out. So in one race, it might be Rolexes on all the bollards. In the next race, it might be Emirates. Right. But each team is kind of free to make their own partnerships as they see fit. And, watch brands, I mean, ever since the inception of Formula One back in the 50s, at least the modern day version of Formula One, watch brands have been there. I mean, from Tag Heuer to Longines, not Elgin, but there was one more that was involved.
Yeah, Longines used to be a big. It used to be instead of Rolex, really.
Yeah,
really.
Longines, the Ebel EBEL was actually a huge sponsor in Formula One. But anyway, so that's the series sponsors and the title sponsors and whatnot. And each race can have an individual sponsor, but generally watch brands kind of steer away from the one-shot deals. They always go with like the long-term multi-year deals.
Yeah.
And each manufacturer is allowed to pick their own brand. And of course, it kind of depends on who has budget right now. For instance, you're seeing Ferrari. Ferrari's been with Hublot since I want to say 2012, 2013. I think they just celebrated their 7 years together. We got some weird press release right before the end of the year, and they're like, "Oh, Ferrari and Hublot 7 years together." And you're like, "Are you leaving? Like, let's go."
Why? Yeah.
So they're so they've been, and I think it's a strategic partnership that goes beyond just watchmaking. They actually have an engineering partnership where Hublot doing some material innovation with Ferrari, and Ferrari is by proxy helping Hublot on some of their designs, and some of the watches that have come out of that partnership are really phenomenal.
Let's see. There's one in here. Let's check it out. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, you're fine. But with Hublot and Ferrari, what's really interesting is, you can certainly sponsor a racing team, right? If you have enough money. I think it's well into, I would say the high 6 figures, 7 figures easily to sponsor a team like that, because you're not only sponsoring them as a series sponsor, you're getting your placement on the car. All of those agreements are based upon, maybe a, 2, 3, 5 year deal. And with that, the team is going to allow, an alliance where, it's kind of, there was I can't mention the brand, but there's a watch brand that signed a major A-list celebrity, and they signed her to a 7-figure deal. And as part of that 7-figure deal, they were allowed 1 event and 1 day in the office and 1 photo shoot.
Oh my God.
It's kind of a similar ilk with this, where let's say, and I don't know the particulars, and again, don't quote me on this, but generally how it works is that, when like a Hublot comes to Ferrari, they'll sign this deal where, they're present at a certain number of race weekends. So let's say, last year I went to the Austin, not last year, 2019. I haven't been to a Formula One race since,
too long. Yeah.
But the brand will be allowed a certain number of tickets so that they can bring VIPs and press and like that. And then the brand will activate at a certain number of races. And then depending on the relationship, the brand will also have access to the drivers. And this is there's a weird gray area, because you probably noticed, and we've always sent each other pictures back and forth where they're like, "Hey, Charles Leclerc is wearing a Richard Mille, but isn't he with Ferrari and Hublot? Like, shouldn't this be scandalous?" And then what we don't realize is that there's very few brands that sponsor teams that also sponsor the drivers in an ambassador role. So all the drivers of the team, yes, during the race weekend they have to wear Hublot, but outside of the track, it's pretty much fair game unless they have a specific contract that they can't wear.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Oh, I like this comment here. Mark Wheeler says maybe Hublot can do something about Ferrari's engines.
Well, I think Ferrari had a great engine, and I think the engine was a little too great, and
Well, bending the rules just a little bit.
By 25 horsepower, and then find them an undisclosed sum of money, and they were pretty slow this year for sure.
Yeah, that was Charles Leclerc.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, I will say, if anybody wants to pay me 7 figures for 1 day in the office, a photo shoot, and to wear a watch for several years, I am available. And
I don't consider myself a sellout, but for the right price.
I think it's pretty. I think there's been some pretty clever marketing. Of course, you see the brands, maybe on the clothes of the drivers. You see them on the cars themselves. But I'm a particular fan of what IWC does with the Mercedes racing gloves.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny for that, because when we did the article, that was the only brand that did this, and now you have Tag Heuer that at least puts their logo on the gloves. And there is, I think, Hublot as well. So
Hublot,
they started
Casio Edifice. They still sponsor AlphaTauri, and they've got a full edifice on there. And edifice is is JDM product, so you can't really get edifice in the US, and I think it's a super cool brand.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess there are this, especially with us living in the US, which is not, you know, in terms of markets for F1, we're not, you know, the biggest, at least yet. So it is interesting how you get marketing for brands that aren't even represented here necessarily.
For as passionate as we are about Formula One, you know, the average viewership for, like, let's say a NASCAR race is between 1 and 3 million people. And the average viewership for a NASCAR Xfinity race, which is the, you know, kind of the sister junior level of NASCAR, is like between 400 and 600,000. And then you look at Formula One, and the average viewership's maybe 250,000 in the US. Like, that's
right.
Especially with all the money that goes into it. And there's just so much opportunity space there where you could bring more awareness to Formula One. And I think they are, but obviously the US was a mess last year and they couldn't do a race here. But we've all been to the Austin race. It's packed full of people. I mean, super diehards. And
it's fun.
The point could be made that, you know, the US market certainly has opportunity to bring on, you know, let's say a Miami race, or let's say I'd love to see the Las Vegas Caesars Palace parking lot race again. You think in like 1982, Formula One raced in a Caesars parking lot in Las Vegas.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And you go back and you look at these races, and they literally just set up bollards and, you know, chicanes in the Caesars Palace parking lot. And Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson, they're all out there running in the Caesars Palace parking lot. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
You know, in relation to all the marketing stunts and everything that they do, it actually reminded me that 2 years ago, that Max Verstappen was with this car on the Las Vegas Strip, having fun.
Yeah.
To do a video, of course.
I mean, the Red Bull racing marketing engine is huge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And right now they're with Tag, right? And actually, it's funny, you noticed watching. I mean, yes, there's the branding all around, but it did actually change your perception of a particular watch,
seeing
right?
Christian Horner wearing the Tag Octavia, I didn't really pay attention to that watch that much, and I'm not one to at least I don't think, but who knows how marketing works, to be like particularly influenced by like celebrities wearing watches. But I actually thought Christian Horner rocking the Octavia. I was like, ooh, that is actually very cool. That makes me like Tag more than I thought. And I don't know. I think that's great. Like, even for the drivers are so well known, but less so the team principals. But to see him wearing it around, I think it's really neat.
And I wonder. I mean, I don't know that if that was like his choice from the Tag lineup, because I don't think I've seen the drivers wearing. I don't know how that works. That might be specified by them. Who knows? You know, I don't know if you guys have any insight.
A lot of it's free choice. I mean, I've spoken with brands, I've spoken with drivers, and, you know, with Lewis Hamilton, they basically went to him and they had this case full of watches, and they opened it up and they're like, "What do you want?" You know, and the drivers were allowed to kind of pick a couple. And Valtteri Bottas was telling me how, you know, he loved the Pilot over like the big Portuguesers, and he was able to kind of select that one. And, you know, I think that, you know, you can certainly tell they give priority to Lewis for sure. I mean, Lewis has his own IWC limited edition now, but yeah, the drivers have fairly free reign to pick what watches that they want. I mean, you know, Charles Leclerc is wearing the Song Blue, Hublot of all things, which is a killer watch.
Full of diamonds.
Yeah, and whereas, you know, I think Vettel just went for like a carbon Big Bang, you know.
Yeah. Oh, here's Lewis with that. This is the special edition they did for his 5th championship win, right? End of last year.
This is my favorite one. Yeah.
That's the red dial, right?
Yeah.
That's right. With like the big Pilot perpetual, the red dial, and like lots of, I think, rose gold accents. Yeah.
No, Lewis does have amazing taste, and he, you know, fashions himself as a clothing and fashion designer. And, you know, I mean, he has found a way to transcend the sport of Formula One, you know, and I think that outside of F1, I think he's going to have a long career, you know, doing whatever he chooses to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess, you know, what are some of your favorite watches you've seen out there? Or which watch brands do you think pair well with sort of like the characters of the teams that they choose to sponsor? I was trying to think about this myself.
No?
You go ahead.
Let's see here. I loved when Oris was sponsoring Williams. I thought that was really, really cool. And they were long-term sponsors. I mean, even watching these vintage races from like 2008, 2009, and there's Oris sponsoring Nico Rosberg, you know.
It's awesome.
But it's outrageously expensive to be there. And I love how Oris has kind of pivoted away from motorsports and more into the world of conservation. But they did produce. I own an Oris Williams chronograph. You know, I think it's got a Valjoux 7750 movement in it.
Is it this one?
No, it's a different one.
Yeah,
but all the Oris Williams stuff was super, super cool.
We should go back and look at some of those because I love the Williams colors and livery, and Oris is such a great brand. That'd be a fun.
And all of it was the Martini livery too, which I think is the picture above. Yeah, but Oris cut that with them 2019. So for the 2019 season and going forward, they weren't involved with Williams. And unfortunately, I think it's a combination of a shift in marketing efforts and then Williams on track performance as well. So
right, yeah.
You want to associate yourself with winners, and they just haven't really been able to get there yet. So
it is nice to have some more accessible brands associated with Formula One that you could actually, get an Oris, right? As opposed to I'm not running out and buying a Hublot or a Richard Mille anytime soon.
And that's the point. Like Richard Mille dominates the sport. I mean, absolutely dominates. I mean, they're sponsoring what's it, 5 teams? Like they sponsor Alfa Romeo. Yeah. They sponsor McLaren.
And Haas as well.
Is it just 3? I feel like I'm missing. Those are
the 3 I recall.
But then the drivers that they sponsor as well. I mean, they personally sponsor Mick Schumacher. They personally sponsor Fernando Alonso. And Fernando Alonso, I think it's the RM37 or the RM67, where he has a custom one-off piece that I love. I actually spoke with Richard Mille. I'm like, could we cash out our retirement account and buy them? And that's the exact same look I got back when I mentioned that.
Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting one because Alonso's coming back to Renault and they have a Bell and Ross partnership, right? Yep. But so if he's personally sponsored by RM, I wonder how it's almost like they've got to like deconflict the 2 contracts and figure out what he's going to wear when. I don't know.
But it's the same point. After we did the NASCAR partnership, George Russell's manager reached out to me.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
And he was awesome. I mean, he's a super guy. He's based in London. And he reached out and he's like, I don't know how confidential this is. I don't think it is. But George doesn't have a watch partnership. And he's with Williams, who doesn't have a partnership. So I think his wrist is fair game, right? I didn't think that Watchonista was a fit because I've got nothing to sell you unless you're a watch brand or a retailer. We don't sell watches. That's our biggest MO is that, we don't exist to sell watches. And so with George, I'm like, well, there's nothing I can really put on his wrist, and having a Watchonista logo there just doesn't make sense. But what watch brands would make sense? And I'm like, well, he's got IWC. Like, why don't you go to them? And he's kind of the man in waiting.
Mercedes, right?
Whatever a watch brand did with George, it would be very short term. It would be maybe a year, 2 years before he ends up, because he's gonna be at Mercedes, whether it's Lewis's seat or Valtteri's seat, he's gonna be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting to see the people that have come out of the woodwork since we sponsored a team. They're like, oh, sponsorship dollars. I'm like, what's available? Hold on. We're not people over there, So.
Yeah, that's funny. I pulled up this picture because I did notice I've mostly seen him wearing an IWC Pilot chronograph, and I didn't know if that was sort of because of his, Toto Wolff's his manager. He's got this connection to Mercedes, but it sounds like from what you said that his wrist is fair game, and he's just choosing that, which is kind of cool.
He's just choosing that, but also he, in 2019 he was the Mercedes reserve driver. No, 2018 he was Mercedes reserve. Because we saw him when we were at the Austin race in 2018. Yeah. He was in the Williams paddock as a Mercedes reserve driver. Anyway, I think that watch that he's wearing was brought to him when he was the reserve driver for Mercedes, and then he just
okay, cool.
Well, I think that's kind of funny. I mean, I think this watch fits George really well, but I have to say, like, seeing some of the Richard Milles on these drivers that are so young now, like an 18-year-old Lando wearing a Richard Mille is like pretty hilarious. I mean, he's older now, but still, it's like,
and they're almost kind of detached with the reality of the fact that they have a $250,000 plus watch on their wrist. And
exactly.
Really goofy things that they're doing, and it's almost like, but when you wear a Richard Mille, it wears you almost. It's so light, and the advanced material. I love Richard Mille. If I could afford it one day, that would be awesome. But yeah, it is funny to see this. And even on the women's category, Richard Mille sponsored a Le Mans team this year.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And so they had but it was an all women's Le Mans team. And all the girls on the team, I was like, let's watch this, because there was Sophia Flourish. She was the girl that had this horrific crash. Macau. And she's not only survived that, but she's kind of thrived in Formula 3, and she's been racing sports cars, and she's got a huge Instagram following. But she signed to the team. This other woman, I think she's Argentinian, Tatiana Calderon, or she.
Yeah. I know her. I don't know what nationality she is.
And I saw her at the Austin race, and she's tiny. Like, she's like maybe 5'1", and so, but the girls did really well, and they actually finished like on the pace. They finished like, certainly there was a lot of retirements. They were racing in LMP1, which is great, for an all women. And I love what Formula One has done. And I think Richard Mille has contributed so much to women in motorsports, and they sponsor like their young talent pool. Like Viv and I were looking the other day, like they posted the Richard Mille racing team posted all the, like 10 women under 16 that they're sponsoring. Awesome. And they just had one of their drivers signed to the Ferrari Driver Academy. Like, they're doing great work.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was on that note of Richard Mille, I think, real quick, going back to the question I asked on like what teams and watch brands seem to pair really well. I think although they're not accessible to most people watching the sport, I think Richard Mille makes a lot of sense as a watch with F1, because you're talking about like sort of the pinnacle of motorsport, especially in terms of like investment in technology and R&D and using like novel materials and design techniques and manufacturing. So that's why, like, I think they go really well. But like that, it may, it may work well in my mind, but it doesn't change I can't afford one. So there you go.
But that's what Formula One's always been about, right? I mean, this is where, they helped, modernize the steering wheel. This is where seat belts were tested. I mean, it's always been a test bed. This is where carbon holes and carbon fiber as itself as a material, where hybrid engine technology, all this stuff has like ended up in our road cars. And it, Formula One was the test bed for that. So I think Richard Mille makes an incredible amount of sense for that. And even Hublot to that degree too, with Hublot's, materials and art of fusion, if you will. I think that's a really great strategic partner. And there's some that work and there's some that don't. I mean, a year or so ago, I met with Longines, and you see all those images you saw in the article with, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you see Longines and Formula One. It's just these two iconic brands together. And then I asked him, like, why aren't you guys in racing? Why aren't you doing this? And like, we just love horses.
Yeah.
Which I gotta say, like, I'm in the horse world, right? Like, I go to the shows and like do all that. Longines has done really well in equestrian land, and like some of the big sponsorships that they've set up of doing these new shows, just like you were mentioning, like in Miami on the beach, is just not something that horse showing ever really had before, or in Paris in front of the Eiffel Tower. And now I gotta say, like, a lot of people that ride have bought Longines, and that's like the go-to watch for a lot of equestrian. So they've done really well, and I think better than Rolex did in horse world. There seems to have been kind of a swap there.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, back on Richard Mille for a second. Show this picture, Arthur. We found one of Grosjean after his like horrible crash this year, and there's his watch. I would be really curious to find out more about this particular watch, and like, does he still have it? Like, how did it fare in that crazy crash? Because
it would have been, this is after he removed his gloves, it would have been covered by the glove, because the glove covers the sleeve. But I'd be interested to see the watch, because it looks like it might have gotten a little sooty there in the picture. But I think it's cool that it, presumably survived.
Yeah. I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. So I did this IG thing, the other IG. I think they're kind of cheesy, but I did this IG question thing the other day about racing, and one of the people was asking, what happened to his RM? I would imagine it's in a steaming pile of rubble in Bahrain. And then it was like, no, it still survived. And I got the same picture from another journalist, and we both were like, we need to reach out to Richard Mille and then see where this thing is at, It exists, it's out there. Maybe he has it, maybe he's doing a video with Richard Mille, and we'll eventually see it, who knows. So, but I'm just so happy he survived that. What a crazy
Oh my God,
crash.
yeah, it was crazy.
Unbelievable. I don't know. I started crying because I was like, oh, that's it. Like that's done. How awful is this? And then to see him just hop out of the car, I don't know. It was really incredible. Just a testament to like all the engineering that
pretty wild
has made racing safer. So
I like this comment. If Cartier made the crash inspired after something, maybe RM could do something creative as a result.
That would be fun. The RM melt.
Yeah.
They should pay you for that. I like it.
Grosjean Survival Edition.
Yeah.
I also had one funny suggestion in the comments here about, sort of the availability of George Russell's wrist. Scott, I got to put in a plug. Scottish Watches has a collaboration with Swatch right now, where they got this artist Diana Evans to do these funny cartoony illustrations, and you can design your own. So I think we should work on that and see if George will wear one.
Price. I think I would be more than happy to introduce you.
I don't know if
I got in return.
Yeah, I'm not sure we got the budget for that, but we'll work on it.
Yeah.
Oh man, so let's see. So we talked about I guess, have there been any other watches where you seeing them in F1 has sort of changed your opinion, right? Like, does the marketing work? I think for me, the Octavia was probably one of the examples that stuck in my mind.
But I was thinking for you, Richard Mille, to be honest, like that was something that we didn't really look at or think about all that much. And then just seeing it so much in F1, it was like, let's look into those. Let's like get to know the brand, even though like they're out of our price range. They're super cool. And the engineering that goes into them is really pretty incredible and amazing. So I think it worked on you.
I think
a little bit.
Incredible job with product placement.
Yeah.
And being at the right place at the right time. And even with Richard Mille, like it's not only the drivers that you see. Back before the pandemic, you actually saw, Martin Brundle wearing his RM, RM base model, basically walking around interviewing all the drivers. And that's what really got me into it. I'm like, what, Martin Brundle's wearing a Richard Mille? Why is Martin Brundle? Wait, who is Martin Brundle? And that's always me, like, on a Sunday, like, watching whether it be some, movie from the 1980s or Formula One race. I was like, oh, what's that actor doing now? Or what's that doing? And then you're always on Wikipedia, like, wait, Martin Brundle. And then you see that, the horrific crash that Martin Brundle had. Then he runs back to the pit to get his backup car and gets back out on the race after suffering a concussion. Like, I mean, the guy's a hero and a legend. And it's so cool how Richard Mille has been able to align themselves with these kind of characters, whether it be a Kimi or whether it be Fernando or Martin Brundle or even Felipe Massa. Like, they've got really great bench of former and current stars that rock the brand, and that's been great. I love I love Hoyer itself, like itself, and I love what they did back in the 70s in Formula One. And I interviewed Mario Andretti a few years back, and I mean, he's got boxes and boxes full of Octavias and Carrera, and just like, I got this one for winning in Long Beach, and I got this one for winning in Monaco, or podium or whatever. And these are my watches. Is just whoever gave it to me one day.
That's incredible. Yeah, it must be really different for a driver receiving them in that way. And it's cool that like, I personally love watches where I celebrate an occasion and make a sentimental connection. I can't say I've ever won one for a professional accomplishment though. So that's kind of cool for these drivers.
Yeah.
I wish
we have a rule at Watchonista where we're not allowed to accept watches, right? Can't accept free watches and under any circumstance, right? Like, I think that's very common in our industry where so many brands try to pay, with goods in kind, where they're like, give me an article, I'll give you one. No, not allowed, right? And that at least gives us some integrity within that. But I would love, and I've tried my hand at karting, and I almost threw up with I'd love to win something and like actually like have an accomplishment and achievement that's worthy of a watch for sure, even if it's a Swatch.
Right.
We'll do like an autocross race of like just the four of us. I got a couple G-Shocks I'm not like looking to keep anymore. I'll put one up for that.
We can have 4 trophies. We can have the podium and then the participation ribbon.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. That'd be a fun YouTube show.
Yeah. I just makes me think of this time karting. Like I do get pretty competitive, but we went with some of our friends who, we do autocross time trial racing a little bit on the side, and but the problem is when you show up with friends and people who don't normally race and stuff, is the expectations are so high.
Well, and Arthur showed up with like his real helmet, right?
Yeah.
And his gloves that he uses for autocross.
The gloves were a mistake.
Sponsored by Monster Energy.
And you're like,
oh, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. No, like the gloves were a mistake because it like raised everyone's expectations. Everyone had a helmet, but not everybody had gloves. Yeah. And finally, like I was like, oh, I was trailing after a few sessions, and I was like, I've gotta win, and I did. Yeah. But no prize.
Redeem
All
yourself.
I did, and instead of like being proud of that, it was just like I barely kept my pride because everyone had high expectations.
So you're basically the guy that shows up to a casino. In my terms, like the analogy would be the guy that shows up to the casino with the hat and the glasses to go play poker and everything like that. And he's got the earpods. And he's like, "Don't mess with me."
Yeah,
right. I had the image, but barely the skill to back it up. So one thing I was thinking about coming into next year, I was actually trying to find some information on who Racing Point partnered with in terms of watches in the past couple of years. And I found one or two articles saying that they were doing something with Chopard, but I don't remember seeing much visibly. And now they're changing over to be Aston Martin Formula One. And I was looking at their current list of sponsors, and I don't see any watch alignment there yet.
I think it's Racing Point / Aston Martin and Williams as the only two teams in Formula One that don't have a watch partnership. You're exactly right. So the article from 2018 that you have up there is still kind of relevant in that fact. I think I put a picture of a burning Force India in the article.
Yeah.
But no, that stinks because I think Sergio Perez would be great, and what he brought to the Mexican market was huge. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of brands that could really focus on that. But the cost of entry is just outrageously high, as we talked about, right? And generally these budgets don't exist in the watch world. I mean, as a watch media that's fighting for budgets and fighting for collaborations and whatnot, we've been fortunate that a lot of brands have supported us, and but the cost of entry for us and the cost of entry for a Formula One team is two entirely different worlds, and it's hard to get that budget in it, but it's also hard to get the stakeholders. You have to have brand executives and brand management that are actually passionate about racing, because otherwise, what's the point? What are you doing? Because it's hard to convince someone of Formula One without them being truly passionate, right? Like they see it as a huge cost center, and it is. The cost to run a team is in excess of $100 million. So even if a watch bring on $1 to $2 million, that doesn't do it. That buys your tires, maybe.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I'm guessing these sponsorships are going to be more important with the cost caps coming in, right? Like they're going to be using sponsorships to be able to fund certain portions of the teams, right?
Because the cost cap is on certain like engineering and performance oriented activities. I don't know. Yeah. But beyond that, they can still pump the money into all sorts of other
salaries.
That's on how much, because it doesn't include salary, but that's not how much, your team can spend to run. But it does, your revenue is not capped, right? So like you can spend as money as you want. You can only spend so much to fuel the car. I think it's what they said, 65, 75. I still think they're finally trying to figure out what millions of numbers will work out there. But your revenue is not capped, so you can bring in whatever you want.
Yeah. So, okay. So imagine, I've got a sort of open-ended creative question here. Imagine you're a Formula One driver, and you could pick, like whatever watch brand you would want to partner with that you think represents sort of like your personality and what you'd bring to the grid. What would sort of your dream partnership be for you personally? Do you have any thoughts? I know I just like pulled this out of the thin air, but
do you have one?
Oh yeah, well, I would say Leclerc. They have done partnerships. Well, the partnership is ended now, but they have done amazing partnerships with Aston Martin. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the watch that could open your Aston. That was really cool.
I don't know that.
Is that the Amvox, I think?
Amvox, that was really, really cool. Then I mean, for racing, I would go reverso because like, let's put that under your glove, turn it around. So like this, it keeps safe because that's what the point of the reverso is. Like you turn the part so you keep it safe. So that's what I would have thought for
that's
racing.
A far classier answer than I would have ever given. Leave it with that, yeah.
I wonder if in that scenario, JLC would do like a modern sort of, well, I mean, Reverso is a beautiful classic watch. I think it's a cool idea. I wonder if they'd take that concept to and ever like do something like hyper modern and wild with it.
Yeah.
Well, they're coming up this year to the 90th anniversary of the Reverso. We never know, but we also know that GLC is also extremely classical and extremely, even if they try to be a bit more modern, they still try to stay elegant and not to be too sporty. Yeah. So I don't think Reverso will see a carbon case anytime soon, but
yeah.
But I think JLC, I did in 2017, 2018, I did the Passion in Gardena in St. Moritz with JLC, and it's a vintage car rally through St. Moritz. It was super cool. Little vintage Fiat that its brakes failed as we were going through an S curve. And
Great.
My wife flashed before our eyes, but and that's where I learned about overheating brakes. But I think that they were really well aligned with that because it's super classy. You know, it can look really perfectly proportioned within a vintage car. But yeah, it would be interesting to see a modern sporty take on the Reverso to see what that would look like, right?
Yeah, so truly like dream world weird
I think
stuff.
That would be neat.
I mean, those Amvoxes were sort of one of the more modern things JLC had done, at least in my recent memory.
Maybe I used to love those watches a lot. I'm kind of sad they're out of the collection now. They were also pretty expensive. But no, they were really, really darn cool.
I'm gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna say that I would like to see Omega back in Formula One.
I was just thinking that, like, I love some of the Speedmaster special editions, like the Mick Schumacher one, but it'd be great to see them back. And I think they could do some, not just like Speedmaster editions, but do something different and neat that's really racing focused. It'd be great to see that back.
Yeah.
I don't know why I sold it, but I was in Portugal. I was in Lisbon, and I was at a flea market, and I bought a Michael Schumacher Speedy Reduced for like 700 euros.
Oh, wow.
You know, 5+ years ago. I was with another collector, and we were there, and I bought that, and I could never vibe with it. It had like a really bulky red leather strap, and it was reduced, and it was just like, of course, there's the whole, you know, the negativity that goes along with having a Speedy Reduced instead of a Speedy Manual, and you know, but I'd love to see them back in it, and I'd love to see them. It'd be really cool to see a continuation, to see maybe even them sponsor like Mick Schumacher, you know, but Richard Mille. But it would be cool to see him wear like a bright red Omega.
Yeah,
you know?
There's a good suggestion in the comments there. Why don't you put that?
Which one? This one?
Yeah.
That Josh stops talking. Oh,
no. With
he has that Casio Edifice. Edifice is a sister brand of Casio, but it's in the same family as G-Shock. So yes, Yuki Tsunoda will be wearing a Casio Edifice, so he will be wearing a Japanese watch brand.
That's great.
Yeah, there you go.
Would be super cool, but I just don't know if Grand Seiko is a good fit for Formula One. Yeah, I mean,
so dressy.
Classic,
I mean, they
modern, and they talk about the
nature of time.
Nature of time, and
right.
I see them more in like a nice, like, you know, I'm looking out the window now and it's snowing, and I see them in like a snow-covered forest as you look at your watch while you're going on a leisurely hike, and you're going to drink a Macallan 18 and look at your Grand Seiko and cherish its craftsmanship.
It's certainly be a new direction for their marketing, right? I mean, they haven't pushed their sport collection as much, but they have a couple pretty sporty things with chronos.
The Nissan GTR is awesome.
That's true. Yeah.
I was at the launch event. That was January of last year or so. They did a really cool launch in LA. That was like a combination Nissan GTR and Godzilla when they released that Godzilla piece. So they are able to trend on the sportier side as well. But I feel like they're always going to let the sportier endeavors to Seiko itself, you know, with the Seiko 5.
Right.
You know, Seiko sponsored Jimmy Johnson in NASCAR. They did.
That's cool.
Gas Monkey Garage.
Gas Monkey Garage. Vivi went to Texas. Gas Monkey Garage, which is super cool.
That was fun.
And they've done, you know, Seiko's done a few other racing themed things, but I feel like they've always kept that on the Seiko side.
You know? Yeah. Josh, I really like your idea or your thought of wishing Omega would get back into more racing stuff, because especially like I really like the modern coaxial Speedmaster racings, but there's not a lot of like, I guess, legitimacy of the connection to racing in the modern day, right? I mean, of course, the Speedmaster started out as a driver's watch, but it'd be cool to bring some of that back and, really like connect that to racing today.
It'd be neat if they sponsored, like, I mean, kind of like Josh was talking about of how Richard Mille has been supporting a lot of these female drivers, but like, I love the W series that started a couple of years ago. I think that's great. And I don't know how much watch affiliation any of that has had, but it'd be cool if like Omega stepped back into racing through like one of those avenues.
Yeah.
Strongly female. I mean, with Kaya Gerber and, the entire Crawford family and I think it would be really cool if Omega was the title sponsor of the W Series. There's a lot of opportunity there.
That'd be fun. So I think continue. I guess I'll answer my own question about the brand I think I would want to partner with or whatever.
Yeah.
I really like IWC and particularly the stuff they do with ceramics or ceratanium and all that. And I think although the pilot style doesn't necessarily like derive from racing, I think it kind of like works really well. And maybe this is me being influenced by the Mercedes IWC marketing stuff, but I think I would have some pretty cool ideas for my own limited edition IWC pilot.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I would go with for my sponsorship.
Interesting. I don't know what I would do. I'm kind of with Vivi on JLC, though. That's if I like magically become a Grand Prix equestrian rider. I would absolutely want JLC to sponsor me because the Reverso, like true heritage, even though I'm not a polo player, never would be. But like, there's
different horsey thing.
There's that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe making Cartier a little bit more sporty. That would be fun. Like bring back some of that sporty heritage.
I mean, you have the Santos. That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Drive to Cartier. See that back. What we're missing is Audemars Piguet.
Oh,
true.
That's true. Yeah.
And
how dare you missing it?
Vivi worked at Audemars Piguet back when they were sponsoring Sebastian Buemi.
Buemi, and we were also sponsoring Schumacher, but that was before the accident.
Yeah. I wonder what does explain their absence today. I mean, there is of course the large budgets we've talked about, but I think the personality of some of especially the like overseas sporty models would fit really well into F1.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, one of the things I believe what happened with Audemars Piguet is like, as every watch brand, you want to be associated with a winner. And back in the day, when I was working there, they associated themselves with Buemi, and Buemi was really bad.
I think that there's a more PC way of saying that, but
I'm getting better now. Let's just say that he has way too much pressure on himself.
It was the Red Bull curse. I mean, you've seen that video. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't remember the year, but Buemi driving down the main straight. I think it was in Monza, and his front wheels just blow off. Like they both blow off.
It's like a meme at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Friday meme, right? And both wheels blow off. And so he, it's a factor of bad luck, but like that second seat at Red Bull has always been, except with the exception of Daniel Ricciardo, has always been cursed, whether it's Pierre Gasly or Alex Albon or Sebastian Buemi.
Well, Ricciardo has also been cursed. Like when we were in Austin, like he literally his engine stopped on the third lap in front of us.
Yeah.
But Buemi has gone on to do work in Formula E, and he won Le Mans with Alonso. But again, there's a lot of, we could go on for another hour about the drivers that should have been a success in Formula One. And through sometimes of no fault of their own, as an American, I would love to see an American in Formula One. And the last ones we had were Scott Speed and Alexander Rossi,
It's been a while.
Yeah. Rossi's team went bankrupt, and Scott Speed just couldn't keep the car on track. But then Scott Speed had an incredible career in rally after that, and then was doing show jumping in Subarus, I think, right? And then Alexander Rossi has gone on to IndyCar fame. So there are a lot of opportunities out of there.
Right. The closest we can do for now is support the Mexican and the Canadians. Say, hey.
Or Haas, right? Just the American team.
Right. True.
But Haas is gonna, have an interesting fold. This second driver, Mick Schumacher's a stud, right? I think he's gonna be great. It's gonna be great to have him in a Haas, and I want to see an American team do well. But this other driver, man, just as we started the show, I'm just, I don't know.
Get in trouble. I don't want you to get banned from anywhere else. But
no, we're good. But I'm hopeful that either this kid is going to either be severely punished and kind of learn from this and move on, and you don't want anyone to fail, but you hope that he learns and moves on. Or if they can put Hulkenberg to Haas, that would be really cool too.
Come on,
that'd be great.
Yeah,
love that.
To have two rookies, it's going to be tough, but they need the money.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I understand the money aspect, but I think I'll be a fan of half the team.
Yeah.
Take that.
I think we'll always be a fan of half of Aston Martin.
Well, I know we could go on for like ever and ever because the four of us could talk about cars, but I think we might want to wrap things up. But is there anything in particular about Watchonista that we should that we can help plug, or anything coming up that we should keep an eye out for?
We've got really cool things coming up. I mean, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Watchonista is a decades-plus-year-old company. We were founded in 2009 by two Italian gentlemen in Switzerland. We're an online magazine dedicated to the world of watches and watchmaking. And we also have a sister company, Watchonista Creative Studios, that partners with brands and retailers for everything from social media management, content creation, digital strategy. It's kind of an A to Z digital communication agency. The only thing we don't do is PR, and so that's been really kind of a saving grace for us because so many other of our competitors and friends. I don't want to poo-poo anyone's work. I think there's a lot of people that do an incredible work. I mean, from Houdinki to the guys at Blog to Watch. There's a lot of other great folks in our category, and we all kind of remain friends. But the one thing that we've kind of separated ourselves from is that we're not a selling platform. We don't exist to sell watches. Yep. It's a purely journalistic effort led by myself and a great team of journalists that we have, including Vivi. And so we have two offices. We have an office in New York and we have an office in Switzerland. So kind of that duality gives us, having a presence on both coasts and between the U.S. and Europe. It has been great. We're within 15 minutes driving distance to most of the manufacturers, and we can be at their at their U.S. headquarters with a moment's notice. So that's been great. We've got a really cool team of 10 plus people in the U.S. that we work with, and then we have over 14 people in Switzerland. So it's been great. And, I've celebrating 4 years in 2 months at Watchonista, and
that's
we've
awesome.
got some really cool things coming this year. I would like to go racing again, but I'd like to go racing when we can actually have some of our clients there, and we can have some friends who Watchonista like you guys come to see a race.
That'd be fun.
That would be awesome. And we have some really cool strategic partnerships that we're going to launch this year as well, and some new content concepts that we're going to bring out. And the idea is not to do what everyone else is doing. I think that if you have this app Watchville, right? We all have Watchville. Mm-hmm. And a new watch comes out, and it's the same articles about the same watch with the same title and the same picture, and everyone publishes at the same time. And 9 times out of 10, you won't see Watchonista there. We just really want to kind of go our own route. What you see is what you get. We're not trying to be something that we're not. There's a lot of ego in this industry, and I think that we're just trying to just be ourselves.
Yeah. We have a new employee.
Yeah, we have a new employee. This is a world premiere. This is Steven.
Oh, yay, Steven.
Nap.
What's his title?
Junior puppy manager.
Junior puppy manager.
Well, he's definitely employee of the month. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Employee
maybe the year.
It's already like his first day at work, and he's doing great.
Our building has a pet of the month, and so now we can actually submit him for pet of the month. But we bought a baby Yoda during quarantine, and we submitted baby Yoda, and like the woman emailed back, she's like, "Well, he had the entire office laughing, but no, he doesn't qualify." So.
Well, that's cool. Sounds like a good year ahead, and hopefully we can do some more in-person stuff and get together again sometime. That'd be fun.
Love that, guys. We'll absolutely love that. Even if we have to wear masks for like the next next little period.
Yeah,
we'll do it.
Still, you guys need to stay safe there too, because you're around DC, right?
Yeah, we're just like hunkering down until the next week. So we are not going downtown.
We'll stay safe out there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us
today.
Yeah, and thanks everybody joined us in the chat as well. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and as a reminder, check out everything else Scottish Watches, the podcast, the website, all that good stuff. So,
cheers, guys.
All right.
See you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye.